Wendy Cunningham, how are you?
So good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, we can skip the format. Actually, we did the formalities, but we've been talking for 20 minutes. You said a moment ago, people should be fearing God, not, I guess, not other people. And we were talking about that in the form of the recent Tampa Bay Devil Rays. People, the players, there's like five of them that didn't want to wear a patch for Pride Month, and they've been getting a lot of ridicule. An ESPN host went on a rant about why they're bigots, even though there's no evidence to suggest in any way, shape, or form they are bigots. What do you mean when you say people should fear God more than those people that are coming after him?
I just love, I feel like it's so infrequent that we see like a bold move like that, which we know that's costly. When you come out and you say, I'm standing against something that's like wildly accepted. I mean, here we are in Pride Month,
Yeah.
and they're not just bold enough to say like I'm not going to wear the patch, but they go on to say because I follow Jesus, which I'm like, come on, we need more of that. Like,
Yeah.
how often do you stand on a platform where you're influential and say that you love Jesus? Like that happens so infrequently, but they're willing to do that. And I thought his statement was great. Just that I love you. I'm glad you're here. This isn't from a judgmental perspective. This is in the same way it would be sinful for me to, as a heterosexual male, to have sex outside of marriage. That's the same thing, right? So like, it's not about, I'm picking on this particular sin. It's just we're just not going to do it because I feel like he said something about like, if I wear it on my body, I feel like it's participating in it. And that's not what Jesus would have me do. I'm totally paraphrasing what he said, but I was like, yes.
It does seem the more I'm had my own kind of religious awakening over the last couple of years, and the more I'm reading and seeing, it does feel like Christians just get persecuted all the time in this country.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that I didn't, maybe I knew it before. Like before, I feel like 20 years ago, I'd hear like the anti-gay marriage people, and I'd be like, oh, those people are crazy. And they would say things. And now 20 years later, I'm like, yeah, some of the stuff they were saying, actually, I maybe need to apologize.
I had that same thought about something my mom said at the time. And I was like, lady, like it was just so appalling to me then. And I was like, she was right all that time ago. She totally saw this coming. You're absolutely right. But spoiler alert, that's hard to say. Christians are far more persecuted outside of this country, right? It's not just in this country. It is promised in the Bible, as a matter of fact, but throughout history, this is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But yeah, it's getting worse and worse. And it's alarming when you look at that, when you know how bad it is in other countries and how, didn't we just see a massacre where was that? Like 50 people killed in a church just this week. I am
really, no, I
the details.
Interesting.
I'll get it for you and you can throw it in some show notes, but just wild what happens, but we're seeing that escalate here. And we're seeing, anything you say, it's kind of like the racist comment. Everything is racist, right? And it waters down the word. It waters down the meaning of, these things.
There's been there's been a few American churches that have had issues, I think, over the last few years. Heck, during summer 2020, it was at St. James Church. They tried to burn that down right in DC. I don't think they ever figured out who did the big Catholic cathedral, Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
I never heard that they found anyone that did that. Like there seems to be this like weird string of like attacks on churches and people, the media, who I'm starting to believe are kind of the mainstream media. I don't want to say they're communist, but kind of communist. I don't know if that's the right word, but maybe they're atheist. I don't know, but they don't seem to cover any of this stuff or care. They're like, oh, cathedral burned, like can't find anyone. Well, let's move on to sports.
Right. That's exactly it. They're at the mercy of what do the people want to hear and where is the money coming from? Like, where can we direct the narrative? There's so much agenda behind all of that stuff. But I mean, we saw in 2020 with COVID, the persecution of pastors in specifically in Canada was really wild, but we saw that here in California, really, really acute. I mean, in Tennessee, I'm in Tennessee, we had just a minor blimp of closing down. Then we're like, wait, never mind, carry on and like go on about your day. I mean, because, we have Broadway in Nashville. So like, it's really hard to say Broadway can be Broadway and like churches can't be churches.
Sure.
So that worked for us. But in California, I know, like, I think it's Rob McCoy who was facing like criminal charges. Like he knew when I open tomorrow, I very likely will be arrested. I mean, we're talking about surrendering an entire career, all kinds of money. And this is what we circle back to our starting point here, is that he feared God more than people, right? He fears the consequences from God and not standing in alignment with what he's calling us to do, but being more concerned with basically anything in the natural, be it your reputation, dollar bills, people's opinions, etc.
At what point, so you wrote a book, What If You're Wrong, where you detailed your essentially whole life and up into finding God and then accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
And that's probably that's way too small of a summary, but that's what I'll do for now. At what point when did you decide I care more about what God thinks of me than what they think of me?
Every morning, right? It's a fresh decision all the time that's the true answer, but it's a process, like when I became a Christian, I still was I didn't want to be Christian-y, I was more concerned with, I don't want to ostracize the people in my life who are not Christian. So I don't want to like be a certain way that's going to put them off. And, even as I'm walking into faith, I'm still really, really married to all of these constructs that really don't matter, but it's just a maturity level in your faith and understanding what really matters, and I think that's a huge blessing of COVID and even the way I see the world moving in the near future, or hopefully not too near, but it's just really assessing like what does matter, what really does matter, like what might they try to take from me because anything's on the table, like we see bank accounts being breached and your freedoms and your Facebooks and your thing, but just realigning with what really does matter and what's eternal and what's not going to be eternal, treasures in heaven, so they say.
The social aspect is interesting. It sounds like, especially just from reading the book, your husband really kind of has he seems, I mean, I don't know how he is in public, I don't know how he is in groups, but he just seems like he totally has this great grasp of like how to, I don't want to say, like his faith just kind of comes out naturally. I don't know if that's the way to put it, but he just seems so like smooth about it. Like it never seemed like he was pushy at all. Certainly like, if anything, it was the opposite of what you expected.
Yes. I think it's, it's not that his faith, I forget exactly what you said, but that his faith kind of just flows out. It's that he embodies what it is to be a Christian. It's not lip service. He just is wildly likable. I don't just say this because like I married the guy, but like he was voted in high school. We went to high school together, most likely to save the world, or, he was just viewed as like this guy that's just good. He's friends with everyone. Nobody dislikes him. Like we went really quickly into our relationship and we almost got engaged after 1 month, which is like not exactly what any mom is like thrilled about. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, like, I feel like he's just so genuine and I don't think he's like putting it on. Like, I feel like that's just who he is, So yeah, he just embodies, because I didn't even know he was a Christian. That would have been a hard stop on the progression of our relationship. But he just was kind and listened and cared and was genuine and trustworthy and all these things that you're supposed to be if you're truly like surrendered to the Lord, and all of these things, the fruit of the Spirit are supposed to just come out of you if you're in alignment. But it wasn't because he was going to church all the time, reading his Bible, studying all the things. I think those are important things, don't get me wrong, but that's not what it was about. It was just about, he just is, he just cares, he just loves well, you know.
I don't remember my follow-up question. That I thought I had something, and I was like, no, I need to really listen. And then it totally went out of my head. Let's talk a little bit about the book. You wrote a book.
I did.
What if, hold on, where is it? What if you're wrong? I was gonna say, what if I'm wrong? But that's my question. What if I'm wrong? No. What if you're wrong, but you're saying it to yourself or to us? I guess to anyone. What if you're wrong? Is that what it is? What if you're wrong?
Equal. Yes. Yep. Exactly. That's the idea.
Do you?
Go ahead.
Do you look back on your pre-faith days and just, does it feel like a different lifetime? Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. And it hurts a little bit in my heart when I look back on just the brokenness that I experienced, and, you know, what I was walking in and the choices I made. Like you know, the enemy wants us to wear our shame over some stuff that we've done. And, you know, we're supposed to be cleansed of all that. And I don't feel shame, but I feel like sadness when I think about kind of specific memories that come up that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how I got myself into that decision. Like what, you know, like I made a lot of decisions to find myself in this memory that I'm remembering right now. And like, oh, that's so sad. It just hurts my heart to think I was just so lost and just so desperate for value or worth. And it absolutely feels like a whole other person. But that's the goal. Is sanctification is slow. Sometimes it can be suddenly and then all at once. But, you know, it's not that it's kind of over time. Like I don't remember making a choice to stop wearing super low cut tops. Like just all of a sudden I realized they're not in my closet anymore. And that's used to be like the thing I wore, you know, or whatever. Just this slow process of stepping away from what I used to be or the decisions I made, but not really knowing that I was doing it intentionally, if that makes any sense.
Now that you have it does make sense. And I think that there is just and I don't know if it's literally just the devil or what it is, but there does seem to be this concerted effort now where, and I want to make sure I phrase this a little bit right, because I don't want to get canceled here, but it just seems like whoever's pushing the women's rights movement is like anti-women. It's like, don't have kids, go out drinking, do whatever you want, be your own boss. Like you can do that up until your 40s. And it's like, that's not how this is actually supposed to work. And now selfishly, I fell into a wonderful relationship. I told you before, like we're still dating. Things are going great. Things might even be up in a level pretty soon, depending on when I release this podcast. So things are going in a great direction. But I mean, we fell into having a beautiful child, and we have an awesome relationship. But you know, if he didn't come around, like maybe we'd still be dating, maybe we wouldn't be dating. So I can't get too judgmental on that, because I could, you know, in a different life, I'd be a 35-year-old, maybe single guy talking to you right now. But now that I have this family and I see how awesome of a mother she is, how awesome of a partner she is, and how beautiful my son is. I mean, I used to be more pro-choice, and now I had my son, and I'm just like, God, I can't imagine. It's like, I just see him, I'm like, he's so beautiful, he's so amazing. I mean, we had the option, and it's just like, I see him and I'm just like, God, this is like the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, how am I so fortunate to do that? And I just feel like the media and society just like, I don't know what it is, but they've just figured out this way to just like manipulate women. And they're like, you need to buy things, you need to look this way, you don't need a man. And then all of a sudden, you know, go out and party, and you should be a Kardashian and do this. Like, I wouldn't want to be a Kardashian.
Sure not.
No,
No.
no, thank you. You are stalked by, I mean, who knows, like who, we talk about someone tried to come to kill Kavanaugh. I'm sure people have tried to kill the Kardashians,
Oh, yeah.
but they ran into their, their 20 person staff of the most giant people in the world. Probably didn't work out well for them, but Kim's been divorced, what, at least twice, maybe 3 times. I don't even know. You just look at, like, it's not, I don't know why. It just seems like that's what we're glorifying. I just think it's not okay. And if you push back, then you're like a sexist. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not saying someone's got to walk around barefoot and cook me meals. I'm saying I'm in a relationship now. It's worked out fantastic. We're fulfilled monogamously. We're not sleeping around. When I was younger, I dated people, I did stuff, and you know what? Now I'm with someone I really care about. I'm like, this is infinitely better than anything I did before. And I feel bad. Honestly, I feel kind of bad for people that don't even want to look in that corner.
Well, it's the deception, right? And the deception is the loudest. And if you look at the garden, I mean, it all happened right there, so much of just understanding everything that's supposed to be and everything that's been changed is in Genesis. But in the garden, you see God says, you can have everything except this one thing. And right away, and I don't have the scripture in front of me, but he says, you can eat from any tree, but you can't eat from this tree in the center of the garden. Then the enemy shows up and he says, did he really say that? Did he really say that you can't touch the fruit from that tree? Right there. No, he didn't say you can't touch the fruit. He said you can't eat the fruit. And then Eve responds and says, no, he said we can't touch or eat. Like, she buys the lie immediately, like, and shifts what God said. But that's the original deception, is question God and what his intentionality was. Everywhere you look, that's where the lie is still to this day, right? Like, his intentionality, to your point, was man, woman, married, one flesh, not divorced, do it. That's the deal. And have lots of kiddos.
Yeah.
Fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, dominion over animals. Like, we see all of this, and then we see the lie, right? Like, I mean, here we are. I hate to get, like, again, I don't want to be canceled and called a bigot, but hey, I've been called all the things. So I'm really desensitized these days. But we see Pride Month. Well, pride, specifically that word pride, shows up all over Proverbs as a negative and sinful word, and that God is against the proud. It's really interesting that pride is the headline word for this movement. And then you see the rainbow symbol. That's from God too. And it is God's covenant to the people, this is in Genesis, that I won't flood the earth again. And why did he flood the earth? Because everybody had become wicked. He floods the earth and kills everybody except Noah's family, pops a rainbow in the sky and says, that's my promise to you that I won't ever do this again. Now, what's the rainbow stand for today? It's just like, we see it in front of our face.
Yeah.
So,
I did not know that. I saw some tweet and it was like, I didn't really, when I read the Bible and hear about, or maybe you wrote this, I don't know, but maybe it's in the book, but what did you, okay, maybe it wasn't a tweet, but it was like, I didn't understand why God would destroy entire cities or flood the earth. And now I'm starting to understand it. Was that in the book?
I wish I could claim that, but
good, right? But right, you can kind of see it. Like when I see those horrifying pictures of those little kids at that drag show, that was awful. You know what that honestly looked like? Hell. It was someone in red with a neon light. I was like, that looks like, I mean, that was a strip club for with kids at. I'm like, I was shocked. Yeah. I was shocked. And you saw some of the pictures of the kids. I was like, can we get a SWAT team to get them out of here? Yeah. It was horrifying.
I mean, and again, we can look through the lens of deception here. We look through a lens of like, well, I don't want to, like tolerance and blah. And God's like, no, it's very clear to me. It's very clear to me that this is wild rebellion. This is evil incarnate, and I don't mean specifically drag queen. Again, it's like, let's go back to the MLB comment. I don't say any of this in a position of judgment. I sin every day. We're all sinners. Yeah. We're all falling short of the glory of God. We're all totally in need of a savior. Absolutely. 10 times over. no one's better than another, but like abortion, to your point again, you know, like we're killing our own babies and we're putting our kids in front of drag queens and gay pride, you know, all this nudity and like sexuality and gender in the classroom. And I mean, every bit of it from every angle. It's just like, my gosh, like even go back to the 50s and think about how much it's changed, like how we used to have just a little bit more anchored in the Christian nation that we once were. And we used to be 85% Christian, like people would claim Christianity. Now we're at 65, which I don't even think that's really accurate. And I would ask, what does that even mean to you when you're saying I'm a Christian? Because a lot of people say I'm a Christian, but I'll be at the next gay pride parade, you know, like it's just also there's like nuances in what does that even mean to a person who's claiming that title, but we are slipping fast.
I think there's so for example, today, it was the first day I did not go on ESPN.com in probably 20 plus years.
Wow. Okay.
But I'm taking a stand. I'm going to do my best to not give my money and my time and my attention to people that hate me and hate my values. And I'm still learning my plumb line. We'll talk about that, but I'm still learning where my plumb line is, but I'm not going, I support, like, you ever watch Seinfeld?
Oh yeah.
Remember the AIDS ribbon?
Oh yes.
Where's the AIDS ribbon?
Great.
You don't want to wear the AIDS ribbon? Everyone is wearing the AIDS ribbon. He's not wearing the AIDS. That's what they're doing to people.
So great. That's a great example.
And I'm like, I am very much like, I don't mind what you do. The Pride Parade, by the way, is interesting because I've been to them. And for the most part, it's just drunken nudity for everyone there. It's just, it's complete debauchery. Like, kids should obviously not be anywhere near that.
It would not fly for a heterosexual parade either. Like, it's not specifically the Pride Parade. It's just that's like a thing. But like any parade should not be doing that.
No, anywhere. If you're doing it in public where children should be around, So it's the line is nobody should be doing that. Like, you should not be watching people humping half naked, wearing dog chains. I don't care what, if you're heterosexual, whatever it is, it's not appropriate for children. And it's not like, but when I was younger, and I think a lot of people when they're younger, they drink. And so when you drink, it's like, oh yeah, like this is total, like everything kind of becomes more normal. And one of the interesting things I heard about drinking is it's spirits. Like, why do you think they say spirits? And I'm like, I never really thought about that. So Mike Cernovich, do you know who Mike Cernovich is? So he's at Cernovich on Twitter. He's Christian. He's a very interesting guy. He's more of this, like, I don't know if like thought, I don't even know how to describe him. He's just a very interesting guy. And so some of the stuff I've learned, kind of picked up on religion, has been through suggestions that he's had. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll follow that a little bit. But he said the spirits. He's like, why do you think they don't outlaw, but they encourage young men to drink, and why they didn't shut down liquor stores during COVID? It's the spirits. And when you start getting drunk, that's when things start whispering in your ear. That's when that bad, those decisions start happening. And like, I haven't really drank much in about 2 years. I've almost kind of, and I mean, I like a couple weekends ago, my girlfriend and I went on vacation. We had a few cocktails on the beach, but it was relaxing to a point, but then it wasn't. And then I didn't feel good. And then I came home and didn't feel good for a couple of days. And it's like this weird, now I'm starting to actually think like maybe there is something to that spirits.
It's interesting. And this will be I think it's even, drinking is one thing, but then we think about not just recreational drugs, but prescription drugs. I think a huge parallel to that, exactly what you're talking to, just almost opening up this, I don't want to say portal and make it sound all extra spiritual, but you know what I mean? Like again, I used to be on anti-anxiety and antidepressant drugs and all of the things. And, it's not for me. It's nothing. Again, I know they help people and all the things, but I took Ambien, sleep drug. Familiar?
I've only heard Ambien stories that don't end well. So I'm familiar. I've never done it, but I know about them.
Used to take Ambien, and I mean, basically I every time would hallucinate people in the room. Like I knew in my mind, there's not extra people in the room, but like the lamp would be like a person, And like the chair over there is a person. And then like I even said to my husband, your face is a demon. Your face is a demon. I don't remember this, but he said, because that's the thing, is you're supposed to take it and go to sleep. Nobody I know who takes Ambien takes it and goes to sleep. You take it, a zombie, until your embarrassed children escort you to bed. And so I was talking to my husband, and you also can't always tell when it's kicked in with someone that you're talking to. At a certain point, it becomes very apparent that it's kicked in.
Yeah.
But so we're just having a normal conversation. And I interrupted him to tell him his face is a demon. Now, I did not believe at that point. He very much was a Christian, and he was like, that's freaking real. That is serious. Like, I think you just saw a demon. And like, he was like, I'm really over you taking this. And I was like, anything you say at that time in my life, I was like, I love you. Okay, I'll just stop. Which I was so glad for, because I needed to get rid of all that stuff, that just the dependencies on things that are idols. If you want to make this biblical, anything that you're putting a dependency on that's not God is an idol. So if that's money, if that's another human, if that's a political leader, if that's a pastor, I mean, is an idol, right? So absolutely, these things that I should have been seeking Holy Spirit. I'm taking a pill or drinking a cocktail or whatever.
What about coffee? Is that idolship?
Depends. Depends. I'm kicking coffee out of my life right now. I only just started drinking coffee in end of 2020. We went on I'll drink an occasional Starbucks.
Hold on. You went 30-ish years of your life without drinking coffee?
Like, not having a coffee maker, but like I would drink a coffee at Starbucks or, other coffee shops, but not like, it wasn't a thing I did until late 2020. We were on a trip and we were in the Adirondacks in Upper New York. And I just was like, we were on this beautiful lake in our camper with my kids, and we didn't have cell phone service. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to make a cup of coffee. And I've had a cup of coffee every day since that day. And now I have a coffee maker on the person. And so I'm like, I need to just like back off. And that's just my own personal conviction. I have like heart palpitations and stuff. So I'm like, I need to get some caffeine out of my life. Yeah. It's not really an idol thing. But for some people, absolutely. If, if you can't give it up, check the heart posture on that one.
Okay, how long have you been off coffee now?
20 hours.
Okay. So you're going to sleep really well tonight.
It's going to be great. We'll see how tomorrow goes.
You'll be fine. I took 2 weeks off of coffee. So this is ironic given some of the other conversations we've had, but so after, I don't know if I told you this, but I was part of the military response after January 6th.
You did tell me that.
So I was like the second or third wave though. So by the time I got there, like there was nothing to do. And I go, well, I don't really have much to do. I'm just going to not drink coffee. And the first couple of days were rough. And then I slept so good. I slept the best I'd slept in like 20 something years. Oh my gosh. But I was so lethargic, and like I was lethargic early in morning is not good for me. I was pretty lethargic. But once I got to like 9 or 10, I was fine. And then a little bit of a lull around like 2 or 3, but afterwards I was like totally fine. And that made me realize like I actually don't need coffee. And so it was good. And then I came home and immediately started drinking it again.
Totally. I like the habit of it, and I do drink fizz sticks. I'm in a health and wellness company. So I drink like an energy. It's less energy than a cup of coffee, but I'll drink 2 of those a day. So like I'm not off caffeine entirely, but that makes me drink more water, and it's not a diuretic. And I have all these excuses in my head why I can keep doing it.
So today you had a fizz stick?
Oh yeah. I'm not off caffeine. Calm down.
Oh, okay.
Totally not an idol though. Not even worried about it.
Not even close. Let's talk more about, I want to go back to the book.
Yeah.
You have these like moments kind of throughout when you question your old beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to someone out there who is just, they know something's up? Like for me, one of the reasons I relate and I think we get along so well is like I've had I've had those struggles where I'm like something's off
Yeah.
and I don't totally know what it is. And then a lot of times when I open my heart, maybe a song will come on the radio or just, God does something and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I got to do. What do you say to someone out there who might be having similar feelings of yours where you're starting to question the beliefs and you're just not sure what to do?
Well, for sure, get my book and read it, because that's what I wrote it for, is specifically people who are questioning. They're on that, I'm not sure what I believe. Or maybe you are like, I think I'm a Christian, but like, I don't really know what that means. Or, anyone at the beginning. And I feel like even Christians who have been in church their whole life might still be at the beginning of that journey and really understanding. When I was writing the book, I was in a work, like a collaboration group, and we would edit each other's stuff, and they were Christian, and one of them had been Christian her whole life, and she's like, I've never thought of these questions, like evolution, how does that fit in, Big Bang, where does that come, dinosaurs, like what, never have thought of these things. And she's a mom, and she's like, I know my kids are going to ask me questions when they learn about it. What are my answers? So even for a Christian, it's a great read to just get firmer in the faith. And for me, because I was an atheist, and that's kind of the premise we skipped over, is I was an atheist, third generation that I know of, my grandmother, my mom, myself. So really rooted in there is no God. That's ridiculous and absurd, and big fat eye rolls all the way around. Never, I remember going to one church wedding and that was like, oh, I'm in a church, and like never went to church, no VBS, didn't even know what that was, like no exposure, 0, 0. Didn't even have friends like who believed, because like where would I meet those people,
Yeah.
So really had no exposure to that. And I feel like that's why I am so grateful to have come to faith as an adult, because it forced me to go back and evaluate, what do I really believe about evolution? What do I really think about the Big Bang? And apologetics, have you heard this term?
No.
So apologetics is like offering a defense for your faith. So I'm a big advocate and proponent of apologetics. And it's, like, let's just use dinosaurs as an example. Like, where do they fit in to the Bible, right? If the Bible starts at creation and like goes beyond, like,
I don't totally I don't know.
So like, well, let's look into it. Let's look and see. And that's what apologetics does, is it offers you, it helps you, I guess, or apologetics is really the practice of doing it. So apologetics doesn't give you anything, but when you practice apologetics, you dive into the scripture to find out those answers so that you know the answer. So if somebody says to you, like, what is this or what is that? You're like, well, this is what I think, and this is where it's in scripture. This is where I get that idea from. So that's really important to me, just understanding the history of the Bible, how historically verified are these books. Prophecy was a big piece, which I talk about in the book too. Just all of these pieces kind of strengthened my faith. And it's a journey I would hope anyone would go on, especially like you're saying, if you're just not sure and you're like, he does not want to be hidden from you, God. He wants to be known by you. He wants to be in a very close and intimate relationship with you. He's not hiding. It's not like a escape room where you have to solve clues to figure out, like, he wants to be there, So, and there's so much depth to your understanding of him, your understanding of this world through him, your understanding of what's happening in culture through the word of God. It's amazing and awesome and exciting. And people skip it and it's good.
That was one of the more interesting parts of the book for me, was the fact stuff, because it's hard for me to turn off my lawyer brain. Then
you gotta read The Case for Christ, Lee Strobel.
I do.
You do. Or just skip the reading of it like I did and watch the movie.
Oh, there's a movie. Okay.
And Lee Strobel does it. So it's like it's just as good as the book.
I did not, I guess I had known that Jesus was a historical figure, but I didn't realize until reading your book that I mean, he's verified everywhere. Like I remember hearing, I think like he's in the Quran, because I think he's in there. I mean, he's literally everywhere. Like it's not like this is he's not Santa Claus. Like there's,
Yes.
and I remember, I like that you mentioned about how like the Romans like Roman history is, and maybe it was your husband said that, but like Roman history is like the history of Christ too. Like it's not,
They overlap.
Yeah, they're right there. And there's so many, like you can tell the story. I thought that was interesting. The math about the different prophecies was, I don't want to spoil that one, but that was like, when you found that out, were you just like, really? Like, did some of the stuff just blow your mind? I mean, I know like, you accepted God, you accepted Christ, but like part of you, those whispers, right? Where some of them like, okay, come on, like really?
Right. And, I think for each individual, certain things stick out more, like I remember hearing about prophecy. Like I remember hearing that specific statistic that you're referencing and being like, oh, that's like, whatever, like thinking you hear lots of things are improbable,
Yeah.
But then hearing it again several years later, and like you said, just having my mind blown because I don't know, I was like in a different place and just ready to receive it differently or whatever. But gosh, and then it really inspired me to look more into the prophecy and then just started to think about it logically. I have a very like logical, rational brain. And I'm like, if people knew more about the way that the prophecy works in the Bible, it's not like fortune telling. It's not like psychics, like we have such a skewed understanding of what prophecy is, and everything that was prophesied sans revelation has come to pass historically. Like all of it has been proven. So when we have the blessing,
except one thing, right?
Revelation, the final thing there, the whole book of end time prophecy. We got lots to look forward to with that one. But we have the privilege of standing in this position in history where we can look back on prophecy as history. I mean, imagine like a lot of these prophets or people that were, alive when these prophets were saying these things, they never lived to see these things come to pass. Like the great majority of the Bible is the Old Testament, right? Like that's like 4,000 years. None of those people knew they never saw that Jesus came, that he did the thing, like that all was just talked about and prophesied. And prophecy is also weird because until it's perfectly fulfilled, it sounds really weird and abstract. Like you're not sure how, is this all one person? Is this like, which Bethlehem are we talking about? Because there was more than one, like you wouldn't know until hindsight is 2020. And you're like, oh my gosh, every one of these prophecies points to this one human, like wild,
Yeah, that's extremely wild. And the other thing I thought was very interesting, or there's a lot of it. I have like a 30-year book is bookmarked, just like Kindle stuff, because I was just like, oh, that's very good. Let me see. I had a couple passages highlighted. Well, the history one I thought was really interesting because I was a history major, and I'm like, why is it that we just assume that everything we read about that time period, because of what we found here, is this and this, but then the minute the Bible comes up, oh, just that magical book. It's like, that is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And not even remove the word kinda.
Yeah. It's the enemy going, is that really what God said? Come on.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's look at history and real things that humans came up with. We don't need to look at what God's coming up with over there. Totally.
There was what were you saying?
No, that's it.
There was a book series. Hold on, where is it? It was a book series. I read this whole thing. It was like the middle of the it was like late 90s, early 2000s. What was it called? Left Behind. Do you ever read those books?
No, but I've heard about them.
I loved them. And I got through about 2/3 of them and didn't even realize it was a Christian book series.
Oh,
It was
and that's
really
rapture, right?
Yes. So I was obsessed with these things. I don't know what summer that was. Like, I think I was in college, maybe it was late high school. I don't know, but I always wanted to read them because they had a cool looking cover.
Oh.
I was like, oh, okay.
All you need.
maybe it was high school because I think this is pre-social media when I would just like hang out at the library. I don't know if I've ever admitted that before, but I used to just like go hang out at the library. Whatever.
That or the mall, right? Those were the places.
Yeah, the mall, the library. Well, like I'd hang out with my friends at the mall, and then like when I wanted some quiet time to read, I love reading, so I would just sneak off to the library. I had a library card. I've had any city I go into, I get like first thing I do is get a library card.
Love it. Love it.
Great. Free movies too, although I don't really watch movies anymore. Anyways, I know now I'm like anti-Hollywood too. I'm like, Wendy, I'm running out of things here. I like can't deal with Hollywood because of all the pedophilia that we know that's going on. Yeah. That I can't, and it's just what their beliefs are. Not everyone, right? But the minute someone speaks up as a conservative or Christian in Hollywood, they get it. So I don't like that. So I'm like, well, I don't really want to watch, and I can't watch Disney. Now ESPN's out. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm back to books.
Can't watch Netflix. No, can't.
Can't do Netflix.
No,
maybe Hulu. I don't know. Is Hulu woke? I'm not really sure.
I can't be sure. I can't confirm or deny.
You know that they've probably got at least one or two weird things on there. You know what was with Netflix for me? It was that weird show with the kids like stripping
Cuties.
Or something. Yes. I didn't even watch it, but I just remember. You did?
Of course, because I'm the girl that's like, well, let's see it then. I don't want you to tell me how terrible it is. I want to watch it and see what's terrible about it, because this is how we're manipulated, even you and I, right? Like get whipped up into a frenzy over something that we never even go read about or learn about or flesh out. So I do it all the time. I'm gonna watch it, see what's so terrible about it. It was way less terrible than I thought. Okay. It was not the way that it was presented. It was not a film that was like, it wasn't about shaking your, it wasn't about stripping or shaking your booty or whatever. There was like twerking 12-year-olds in it, like, and it was inappropriate. It went too far in specific ways, and I'm not defending it at all, but I was just like, okay, that's not what was portrayed. I still don't like it. I'm going to cancel Netflix for other reasons. Yeah. But yes, I know what you're talking about.
So you did watch it. Okay. Well, good for you, because I did not. And I probably fall too much into the trap of believing the media that I see, because it's not that everyone's lying to us at all times. Like that's one of the things I figured out with court is like, I'll trust when I verify.
Sure.
I trust when I verify. Like every defense attorney has this amazing story about their client. And it's just, I'll give them this. Every defense attorney who I run into in a courtroom, they're good. And they have a story and it sounds good. Like every one of their stories sounds good. And then I have to like remove myself and be like, wait, what are they accused of again? Okay, let's try to no.
Yeah.
But I fall for the media trap too. I get too riled up. I look and I'm like, oh, this. I don't post anymore like I used to. I'm out of my aggressive conservative posting phase. So
that's good.
Good for
me.
I
feel like the red pill, like I did this. Everybody does this. My husband red pilled back when he was like 16. So he's like very skeptical of all things and like is so annoyed at people's very surface level understanding of these very deep and like, and I'm a late comer to the game. So he's always like, yeah, remember Benghazi? I'm like, refresh my memory. I wasn't paying attention then, all that to say, he's like very, very skeptical, but he always says like when people become aware of this alternative to the mainstream narrative, it's like they suddenly believe every single thing, like everything. And then now the earth is flat, like they just fall off into every conspiracy, everything is true. Oh my gosh. And it's like, whoa, that's not true. That's true. That's not your true, that story.
It is kind of like it's like you get liberated and you like don't know what to do with your freedom. You're like, wait a minute. All that back. Yeah, it is kind of weird. When do you think you were fully like, maybe fully is not the right word, but when did you feel like you were sufficiently red pilled as to what the media really was and other things of that nature?
November 3rd, 2020.
That was the day.
that was definitely the day that there was a strong pivot, followed closely by January 6th, a firmer pivot. But my husband like chopped up my red pill for me and would like we would do like a monthly, okay, you know, like we've been married now 14 years. So I'd be like, okay, what's happening really in the world? You know, like give me the debriefing. So like I was like half had my hand on that, but he was very, very like obsessively read the news. He's the guy that knows every leader's name of every country. I'm still trying to figure out how many countries there are, like, and he knows the history of every major war, and like he just loves this. So he's like that guy.
Yeah.
So I would just touch base with him, like, what are the key things I need to remember are happening in the world to like live my life? But it would just depress me, you know, like I just get so weighed down at like how terrible it all is. And back then, before 2020, like we were still doing life pretty normal. Like it wouldn't matter, like to know the deep state stuff. Like it didn't really matter because we were still doing the sunshine game up top. And November 3rd, he was already so like, this is going to go way haywire. And I was super convinced it was not going to go haywire. It was going to be like an overwhelming win for Trump. And
I thought so. I thought Trump was going to win too. And then I was like, I held back from texting any of my liberal friends, but I was like, I still have a bottle of Trump champagne I bought in Charlottesville in 2020. And I brought it back with me and I was ready to pop that baby. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I woke up next morning and was like,
like the rest of America.
What?
The 2016 election, my husband did that because he was so convinced Hillary was going to win. And so was I, because she's like the girl, she's their girl. And Trump was so clearly not their guy. I mean, the Republican Party itself tried to kick him out, you know, as much as it could. And we saw Hillary kick out Bernie, you know, so like we were like, oh, she's got it. There's no way. And so the fact that he won in 2016 and we were not Trump fans then, not that we were Hillary fans, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
But we were like, he was really okay. Like that gave him some encouragement about it isn't just all going to go down the shitter. Excuse my language. You can edit that. There is a chance that we can have some change of direction, you know, which of course that was a blip in the matrix and Trump never should have won. And we've all been panicking ever since then. Right. But so 2020, I went to bed at like 1 a.m, like not early.
Yeah.
And it was a done deal. And I could not believe waking up in the morning. And then I became wildly obsessed with, I watched every hour of the uninteresting Senate hearings in all of the states. Like the Arizona one was 10 hours long. And I thought I would watch the first hour because I'm a homeschool mom. No, we did not homeschool that day. I sat for 10 hours and watched very boring stuff happening. But I was just like, it's the same thing as cuties. I was like, I must see it for myself. I need to know what happened, you know, which of course led to us going to DC on January 6th because I was so obsessed and just like, this cannot be a thing.
I know a lot of people that, and they're only, my favorite part of it, they're only on the right that are like, they are just like, something happened. I want to hear all about it. Like, like the way you just described it is so funny to me because I have watched things that I can't even believe I watched because I'm like, I have to see like what this is. I've watched documentaries. I've watched C-SPAN. Like I find myself doing things and I'm like, you got to let it go. Like you have a family, like you have a job. You have really some good things going for you. And I'm like, I need to know what happened. I need to know what happened. I haven't watched 2000 Mules yet. I'm gonna obviously watch it. Have you watched it? Obviously.
Premiere night.
It's like it just the thing that for me was like so weird is like the nursing home. What was it? The nursing home stats in Wisconsin. I think that was the one that got me. It was like something like 99% of 99% of some nursing homes voted. I'm like, there's no chance those people could vote. Everyone who's been in a nursing home like you see people that, and it's sad, and I'm not making fun of them because eventually this will be all of us, but they're just crumpled up in a chair, staring out at the window. Like they were, yes, and yeah, voting for their favorite, judges through congressional up in the president. Like they're literally comatose,
right,
staring out the window, like hands clenched. They couldn't even get a pen in there if they tried. And you're telling me they voted? There's no 99% of the people in there voted. There's no chance that happened. Obviously, there was something. So don't tell me that nothing happened. I don't know what it is. And just so I don't get kicked off social media, no court has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that there was election fraud. Just so we're all clear here. But don't tell me what is blatantly in front of my face isn't reality. It drives me freaking nuts. It's the same thing with the media. They're like, no, those Wisconsin conspiracy theories. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a real thing that happened. And I'm going to read about it. Or like, what was it? Who was it? That judge? There was a Supreme Court judge in Wisconsin, a former one. He was the former head of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And he wrote a report, and I haven't read through it, but I should. Again, I haven't went down that rabbit hole yet. I have some things but it was like, I think he came to the conclusion that they should, what was it? They should like invalidate their 2020 vote. And then they're like, no, it's a conspiracy. And they're like, no, a Democrat appointed him to do that. It's a thing. There's so much. I think Arizona is the crazy one. You brought that up. I've heard a lot of whispers that Arizona was just like, and they're trying to blow it up and trying to make it, but the media just won't cover it.
Well, in Georgia, Arizona and Georgia, do you remember that video that came out of them pulling suitcases out from underneath the table and just
I heard that was debunked though. I heard it was debunked.
Of course you heard it was debunked. Have you watched it with your own eyeballs? Because it is.
I have a couple times.
Pretty clear to me what's going down. But yeah, there's so many conspiracies.
All conspiracy, but it's just like one of those things where you're just like, part of me though is like, am I just so biased because I just thought I saw the rallies, November 2nd, he's in Pennsylvania. He's got like the fracking thing or whatever, thousands of people, and Biden's at like a dinner with those, remember the circles and I'm like, and I don't know. I will say this though, whatever happened, the Democratic Party outsmarted the Republican Party because they got their people in there. So I give them credit. I don't like what they did. I don't agree with what they're doing now, but you know what? They got the W because they're the ones in power. And ultimately it doesn't matter what we think happened because they got in. And so then, now, do you follow Bannon at all?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
do you listen to War Room?
I do.
I started listening to War. Again, I'm like, things I can't believe I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, I listened to War Room the other day. It was pretty interesting.
I'm like, telling my husband, I get my geopolitics from Steve Bannon. He's like, oh, brother. I'm like,
tell me where he goes wrong.
I know. And I want to say, I feel like I have the advantage of really knowing I am mildly biased, if biased, because I did not decide to vote for Trump until like 10 days before the election. I had been a third party. I know it's a throwaway vote. I had my reasons, whatever. For the last, that was gonna be my third election voting for the Libertarian Party. And right before I was like, okay, I went to a girlfriend who was like, you really should look at more into all the things, like when you really look at his whole presidency and what he did, and he is a strong president, a really good candidate, and she presented all the different things that he put in play, and I was like, you know what, that's true. And I watched a thing on TV that Kirk Cameron did, and that's actually where I saw Charlie Kirk speak for the first time. He's so great. And I'm like, okay, it was like a rally, but it was like a Christian rally that Kirk Cameron was doing. And I'm like, he made a point, it wasn't about Trump the man, it was about conservative values. And I'm like, I'm in for that for sure. So I really don't feel like I was married to this human, Trump, as like the guy. And it was really just the principle of it for me, of how blatant it was. And like, what are we doing counting votes for 100 million years? And like, oh, just a town randomly in Michigan, like all the votes were just accidentally flipped, but like just that one town, and like we fixed it and it's fine. Stop talking.
Small
I was like,
glitch.
what? And every day it was just like more and more unreasonable. Like I just could not, because I was paying such close attention. I'm like, stop telling me to stop, that it was the most secure election. Like it's so clearly was not the most secure election. Like at least drop that line,
Or
So it's just,
if it was the most secure election, I got a lot of questions about what was going on before.
yeah,
A lot of questions.
Seriously.
Yeah. It did seem like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It was just, Brazil can count their votes in like a day. I think France counts their votes in a day. And then for us, it was like, and then there was, I think it was Axios maybe did this. There was an article, and I remember I saw this. It was like in September, and they're like, here's what's going to happen. They're like, this big red wave is going to look like its thing, but then there's mail-in ballots are going to come in. And then once the mail-in ballots are counted over like this 10, 15-day period, you're going to see that Democrats are going to do. And I remember reading that and I was like, that's asinine. I'm like, what are they even talking about? And I think the person tweeted out was like, they're telling you what they're going to do. And I was like, they can't pull that off. That doesn't make any sense. And then that's literally what happened. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And then that apparently Time Magazine, or not apparently, but remember they wrote that article. And then now apparently it's like hard to find. You can't Google it. It's like, I think it's behind a paywall now. Yeah.
That was after. That was like, the way it was like titled something, basically the way we stole the election in front of your face.
How we fortified, the fortifying of democracy. And then now it's like hard to find the article. It's really, it's like all this stuff is just like, I never thought I'd be like, part of me feels like I'm totally a conspiracy nut at this point, but I'm like, no, I look into things. Like I'm not, I see, don't tell me I'm freaking crazy. Cause I'm like, this is a thing. And they're like, no, it's not a thing. The sky's green. Do you follow Jesse Kelly?
No.
You should check out.
I don't follow. I'm not on social media.
Oh my, wait, what?
I know. Well, I have Telegram. Does that count?
I don't know what goes on in Telegram. I don't even.
Like, I only follow like news outlets or like, Steve Bannon and like the different people, Charlie Kirk. Like I'll follow people that bring me only news, because I can't handle everybody's opinions anymore about all the things, like the comments. There's no comments. But I left social media after January 6th.
So how old's your oldest your daughter, right? Oldest daughter?
Yep.
How old is she? How are you? So one of the things we're doing with my son is we're asking no one to post pictures of him online.
Yeah.
How are you planning to handle, or how are you and Tom planning to handle social media with the kids? I mean, you might already be having to deal with it. I don't know.
No, I'm like wildly biblical and conservative in raising my children. Like we live on 84 acres at the end of a dead end road in Amish country. Like we're just taking a different road here. We homeschool, my kids do not have phones. They have very, very limited media at all, because we have a farm. Go outside. You know what I did when I was your age? I went outside. Go outside. So you have 84 acres, build a fort, go do something,
So who was the farmer, you or Tom?
It's a collective. It's a joint effort.
Okay.
I mean, we have cows. They basically just like, eat the grass, and we have goats, and like my daughter's in charge of them. And then we have a greenhouse that I weed, and we have a garden that we try to keep the bunnies out of. We have chickens.
Okay.
That we try to keep them out of the garden too. It's just like it's just very trial by fire here. It's hilarious. Don't have too much of a picture in your head, because it's very chaotic.
I can't even, I just imagine you being this like California, like atheist liberal, and now you're a farmer and like
Amish country. Yeah.
But like loving it.
It's pretty radical. Yeah, no, it's hilarious.
It's just like, do you just ever sit around sometimes? You're just like, really, God? Like, is this?
Oh yeah. I mean, what's so cool is like, I imagine what Tom saw in me, like not what did he see in me? Like, obviously, what did he see, witness in my journey? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, because I did, yeah, it was like the California brainwashed liberal, pro-choice, Obama, all the things.
Yeah.
And I mean,
How did that work? I mean, well, first off, okay, if I were him, I would have ran. I'm just gonna be honest. Like,
100%.
everything going on with you, this man is just something special because
Really no sense to it. None at all. Like, I say that multiple times in the book. Like, to this day, unsure what, but it worked out. Like, and I jokingly say that I'm like, I really turned out okay. Like, I really turned a corner. You did not see this coming. You cannot say you saw how great I was going to be. But no, I was a complete disaster. I mean, talk about like all of that, the Obama pro-choice action, but like, I was just a wreck of a human. Like, I was the psycho girlfriend. Like, he's like, oh, I'm going to go out, over to Matt's house. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. He's gone 38 seconds. I'm like calling, where are you? Where are you? I drove by the house. You're not there. Like that. I'm that girl. I was that girl. I know, it's really sad, but he said, and I said this in the book, he said, what has happened to you is not who you are.
yeah.
And that was like wild. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that's true. Like, cause it's just like all this, like,
It's a good line. I hope that's real.
Yeah, I just had so much trauma and stuff, really just so emotionally abused. And I just had no concept of like what this was supposed to look like in a healthy way, and he could see that was the case, that this wasn't me. This was like what had happened. And so we worked it out. It was great, but no reason why he should have married me. Absolutely not. But I think of what he's witnessed in me over the years. And now, like, I see my sister has come to know the Lord and my cousin, and I'm just like,
Really?
wow. Yes. And I think it's so crazy and cool because that's like fruit, man. This is fruit, of God's work and how he can totally transform a whole generation. That's it. It's me, my cousin, and my sister. We are the generation. There's no one else that's not saved now, and I'm just like, gosh, that's really cool, but yeah, it's wild to think what my husband has watched me, how much I've changed and shifted. And some people, and they're silly people, would say that it's because he changed me, because like I just did whatever he said. Like I get that a lot, that, oh, you just like became a Christian because he was. And I'm like, that's really not my thing. Like, I'm just really not that girl.
No, not from what I read. In
No,
fact, it seemed like it was the opposite. You were very persistent in the fact that like, I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do here. And yeah, I mean, I really like this guy, but like, I'm not going to do that. He never, it was from the way you told it, he never was pushy.
I mean, we got married and I was not a believer, which is like big no. You're not supposed to do that. But people are really surprised. Christians are really surprised to hear that like, oh, and that kind of defunks like, no, I wasn't just doing whatever he said, or, like it was years of this ongoing argument. Like, let's just be honest. It wasn't like a civil conversation. Like, it was from his side. He was always very kind, but I was wildly antagonistic, very, very defensive, very aggressive. It's kind of the way that when you are talking to someone on the other side of the political spectrum, sometimes it feels like you're talking to somebody who's like really aggressive, really defensive, giving all this emotional rhetoric.
Yeah.
And when you clear all that away, it's because they're deflecting. They don't actually have good answers. They know that this doesn't make any sense. And that's really where I was coming from, is I'm totally deflecting because I don't want to answer your questions. You answer my questions. Like, I don't have to answer you. I don't have to tell you what I believe. Like, you tell me what you believe, like just that kind of attitude about it.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. Like, I forgot who said this, but someone's like, imagine being so confident and so arrogant that you human, of all the people on this earth, that nothing exists after this life. Like, you figured it out. Like, you. And I said that was so interesting to frame it like that, because atheists try to frame it as like, oh, you think that's what happens? And it's like, oh, you think that's what doesn't happen? Really? And they don't have an answer to that.
I had a conversation with a friend who still claims he's an atheist, and he sent me like a zinger message. Like, I figured out God wasn't real when I was like 8 years old. And I put that in the book because I'm like, and you didn't go back to check like what your 8-year-old self had figured out about eternity. Like, I know you meant that to be a dig at me, but that really makes you sound like maybe you got it wrong when you were 8, you know?
I like that. I forgot you had that good part. You talk about like, re-examining beliefs from when you're younger. People don't do that though. They get in this, like, I'm doing this. Like, I think politics is a great example of that. People will, their parents voted a certain way, then they start doing that, and then they get older, and it goes back to, I think one of the main concepts of the book is like, what's your plumb line? What are your actual beliefs? And that I thank you for that, because that's something I now need to continue spending more time examining, because I find myself, I think it's happened earlier today too. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, I really got to think about that, because I don't know how if someone actually really drilled down on me on a couple things, I'd be like, I actually don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not, it's interesting to be like, how do you actually think? Because I think a lot of people it's easy to just go, oh, well, here's my phone. Let me just look at some stuff. And now I'm talking to you on a podcast, and do some laundry, and I'm going to bed. And then I'll wake up the next day and I have thought about, like, people don't think about things. They just kind of,
and then, like, I remember thinking through like the abortion issue and having lots of conversations with my husband about it, and being, now I identify as a libertarian or a conservatarian, let's say,
what does that
which
mean?
Like a libertarian is more like the individual over everything else. So a libertarian would say like, yeah, gay marriage is fine as long as I can still have my marriage over here. You can do you. It's like the live and let live, the ultimate live and let live. But I'm conflicted with that now, to your point about the plumb line, because I'm finding that, like, if my plumb line is the word of God, which it is, then I have to run things through that. And like the abortion issue, I was like, libertarian self would say, if you want to get an abortion, good for you. I'm not going to get an abortion, but like, I'm not going to make it so that you can't get an abortion. But that's a hard issue. Do you see what I'm saying? That's where I was like, what is the most important part about my plumb line? Is it that I'm a Christian, or is it that I'm a libertarian? And like, the answer is I'm a Christian. That informs more than my political stance. And I know that because I used to be a Democrat. Like, I have shifted. This is fluid. The word of God is not fluid. The word of God is eternal. That is sound, so like everything else kind of moves and changes. So I can't hold on to my political stance to inform me on everything. I have to look at the word of God. And so that's really what brought me to, like, I went from being very pro-choice to like, well, I wouldn't have an abortion, but like, I guess that's fine, to really being like, no, this is a life. Like, there's no question. And that life deserves to exist. And becoming, I don't want to say more and more extreme, more and more convinced that is the way that God would have it, that it does not matter. He does not make a mistake. So even if you made a mistake when you were drunk, even if there was a rape, even if there was incest, God did not make a mistake by creating that life.
Yeah. He's
going to use that life as redemption. And this is hard and tricky, but have you read A Stolen Life? Mm-hmm. It's the JC Dugard story, and you're about my age, a little younger. So JC Dugard was kidnapped out of Tahoe when I was a kid. And I just remember, because I went to Tahoe a lot when I was a kid, that like I knew exactly where she was kidnapped from. Yeah. And she was missing for 18 years and showed back up, 10 years ago, maybe even more than that now. JC Dugard. And I read her book, and she was kept captive for 18 years. She had 2 children by this old man that kept her captive she was like 12 and 14 when she mothered these children. I mean, it's like the most extreme, terrible situation. Yeah. And yet when you read this story she wrote, these children became her entire world. They were her purpose every day to stay alive, to fight, they gave her purpose in her captivity, something to do, something to take care of. And they kept her sharp and planning to escape. Like, if that's not a perfect example of like what the enemy meant for evil, God inserted himself into that and turned it for good and redeemed the entirety of that, situation.
I do slightly remember that, but I didn't I don't know the details, but I'm gonna have to read that. That's really interesting. How do you, well, you also mentioned that I think a lot of people used to be Democrats at one point, but the Democratic Party back in 08 is a little different than it is. The Democratic Party in 08 is closer to the Make America Great Again movement of 2022 than it is to the Democratic Party of 2022. So you didn't necessarily leave the Democratic Party. The party kind of left. I think a lot of people had that where they're like, I don't really know about that anymore. I don't know about that. I don't definitely like that. No, it's interesting. Are you a Christian or are you a blank? Are you a Christian or are you a Republic? And I hate that you have to, I think it's easier to, I guess it is easier to say like, these are my these are my Christian beliefs. And I mean, it's like you said, God's trying to make it easy, right? Like, hey, here you go. I'm right here.
Well, let me put it to you this way. My friend said it very simply. If you can lose it, it's not who you are. You can't lose your salvation. You can lose the title of mother. You can lose the title of wife. You can lose the title of Republican or Democrat or whatever. Yeah. If you can lose it, it is not who you are. You cannot lose your identity from your creator or your salvation from your creator. Can't be lost. So that is who you are. That is at the core. That is your informer. That's your plumb line, right? If you're a Christian. And it should be, I should say, if I can be so bold to say such a thing.
Why not? I was gonna say, I was trying to come up with a good question to be like, oh, well, it's like, here's a big question, like, get you out of here. But I actually have no idea what that would even be. What, I don't know. You're just so fun. What, okay. So your podcast on, where is it? I feel like I should have it right in front of me and I don't.
Gaining My Perspective. That's
Gaining My Perspective.
GainingMyPerspective.com is where I exist in the world. And you mentioned like putting pictures of your kids. Gosh, we just don't even know how vulnerable we are. The way that we do our life, the way that we post every meal, and share our local check-in at every airport. I got to thinking like, I communicate when I'm not at home, when our whole family's on vacation. Like if anybody's paying attention, want to go to my house right now, it's very clear I'm not there, like won't be back until whatever time. It's just like all strange stuff we communicate now. But so I actually am on Truth Social and I am on Getter, but like I haven't yet committed to like growing the platform. I'm just like, I'm there.
Truth Social is surprisingly fun.
Yeah, I actually think it needs some, first of all, Truth Social, it's a really terrible name.
Correct. I'm with you on that.
And it could use some more user-friendly interface, because when someone comments on something, I can't, like, it takes me like 17 clicks to figure out, what are you commenting on? Like, what did I say?
Yeah, so it's got some kinks to work out. Yeah.
But I am on that and Getter at Wendy Cunningham.
I'm not on social media. Okay. I'm on True Social. I'm on Getter.
In the way everyone's on social, and I don't post any pictures or anything. It's just like, it's like Twitter, right? It's just like my words, which is what I do now. But GainingMyPerspective.com. That's where I'm at. That's where my book is. My podcast is there. I just released a devotional for a divided nation.
Okay.
It was very much like God was like, I feel like Christians need to go into the word more. And so how can we like make it funny and light and like encouraging, but relevant? Because people feel like the Bible's not relevant. I'm like, the Bible is so relevant. So I actually put it out as, I know I was explaining this to you in the email, but I put it out as an ebook because it was like too relevant. Like if by the time I got it in, put into a book and really, it would be like, well, that was like last year's current events, So I'm kind of just ebooking it 30 days at a time just to give that option. So you can read it on your phone when you wake up instead of scrolling.
Wendy Cunningham, you are one of the most fascinating people I've ever met via Zoom.
I love it.
You
That's a
are
great.
so interesting. And we'll talk more offline, but I have some ideas. But for now, I thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.